Welcome back to another video. You may have seen recently we took this Ineos Grenadier up to the Lake District for a fantastic trip. Today we're going to be taking a deeper dive look into the Grenadier and comparing it to a Defender. I just want to thank Ocean Group, my local dealership, for trusting me with the keys for such a long drive. If you want to test drive one for yourself, get in touch with them. It was great to finally get my hands on one of these for a bit of a test ride and also give a bit of a review from a Defender owner, so I hope you enjoy this one. So then, only been driving it for about 20 minutes and it's quite nice to get the initial impressions because, I don't know, with me, when it comes to the Defender and when it comes to like normal road cars, I have a different expectation, I'd say. So when I get into my Golf, I'll hear the tiniest little rattle and I'll be annoyed by it. But with Boris, the wheels are wobbling, it's all rattling around, the chassis is bending, you can't shut the doors, and you don't even notice it. Well, you do notice it, but it doesn't really bother you that much. You know, that's what it is. It feels like with this, that it's that level of refined, you do start to notice the smaller things. So I think my mind is going to like a standard road car with how comfortable and quiet it is. So the things I've noticed at the moment is going to the automatic, it's quite like a unresponsive pedal. It is a very smooth car, it sounds nice. This is the petrol one and it's got a lot of power. I've heard a lot of people talk about the steering, and I'm sure if you've heard about them before you may have. I would say that off-road, didn't even notice it. Now I am starting to notice that it doesn't have that return to centre. You know, it is a bit interesting. So you come around like this, and on a normal car you might let go and it straightens up, but this one, it carries on turning, but it's not enough of a problem to really deal with at all. And I'll see over the next few days if I get used to it or not. So one thing I will say is that it is no slow coach. The 3-litre petrol straight six, the BMW gearbox and engine definitely provide enough power. You plant your foot down and it takes off the line. Sounds amazing. So that does definitely add a nice benefit to it. You know, with Boris, you've got the 300 TDI. It's not terrible, you know, but it is not what you want really. This, you just put your foot down and it just goes. You get the overtake speed and it just comes up like that really nice and easily, and makes that even more usable around a city situation like this. And I thought I'd bring it into city, into Plymouth now to have a look, as it's nice to see what it's like, you know, day to day. Just wanted to show you, just check that out. Some people do like it, some people don't. I'm a massive fan of this part. Just obviously got the standard gear knob there, low range. I just love the rugged nature of everything. Absolutely awesome. And one of my favorite bits is the panel up the top there, Grenadier. And you've got 3 wired switches in here. Up there, look, if you wanted to add light bars, anything you want. Perfect sort of camping equipment, just wire it in, all ready to go. It is like a fighter pilot's console, which is unbelievable. I was really hoping to test the Grenadier off-road on this trip, but unfortunately the Growthway Adventure Centre that we went to was just a bit too tough for a hire vehicle. So in the end we opted not to, but I did take one out at the ABR Festival a few months ago, and I've got a small clip here.
You can either drive straight up into one, or if you want to, you can stop halfway up, pick the worst place, and then we'll just carry on driving, whatever you want to do.
Give it a demo.
There.
Oof, hang on. The Euro's behind.
Dust control.
That's it. On the no handbrake,
no,
just
go
straight onto the gas and go.
Wow.
Dip. it does make me want to get my bike back going again. So I'll put it back into auto.
Yeah.
The one I've always taken up is the diesel, which I'm more of a diesel man myself.
Yeah.
It's got loads of grunt, loads of torque, and you can't really hear much difference, to be quite honest.
No.
I now wish we got a little bit more footage from this event, but it was a really good taster, a few ruts and bits and pieces to drop down into, and some boggy bits as well. One thing I took away from the off-road session was the actual grunt from the 3-litre petrol that we had then as well, and also the suspension felt like air, but it's actually just on coils. I think it's just set up really well, and over the faster bumps it just sort of floated across it, which is absolutely brilliant. The other models, not the one that I had for this trip, some of them actually come with triple lockers from factory as well. It's an optional extra, and it would be a pretty cool thing to have built in.
So I thought while I was stuck in traffic I might as well talk a little bit about the vehicle on the sort of dual carriageway, going onto the motorway in a minute. I've been driving for about half an hour and it is very, very smooth, very, very quick, very, very quiet, which is really nice. Again, I think harking back to what I said earlier, it is like stuck between like a modern four-wheel drive and like Defender style car. Like you still got a bit of backlash in the transmission down below, which is quite funny. There's a little bit of a loose spot in the steering, which harks back to the Defender as well. But again, they're like really manageable, very small, and it's great because you sort of remember that it is a utilitarian rugged vehicle. But then you've got all of the luxury items on top, like CarPlay, aircon. It's quiet, nice doors, lots of space, and just being able to cruise at motorway speeds, which is really nice. Even if we were doing full speed now, I would be able to talk to you just like this. I just thought as a slow speed I would just speak now about it, but it is funny. I think the biggest takeaway and biggest difference so far has been the steering. And again, on a test drive you're going to notice it if you've been driving a standard road car. I've got used to it completely, and the biggest takeaway is that it is a sort of middle ground between a modern four-wheel drive and a Defender, basically. So this is third day. We came up on the motorway and we're now done fast B roads, we've done motorway speeds on the motorway. Generally, if you're comparing it to a Defender, it's lovely. But because it's so luxury feeling, or more luxury, you start to think like Discovery Range Rover, and then compared to that, it does feel like it's got quirks. But yeah, it's good. What do you think about it? You like it?
As a passenger, yeah, it's nice. As a passenger, it's nice.
Passenger princess.
Yes, I'm getting carted everywhere. But yeah, as a passenger, it's a nice place to be. Like you said, as long as you get away from the fact that it's a more luxury diversion than a Defender,
Yeah.
I think it really works.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah,
And we're actually dry at the moment, which is handy as well.
It is nice.
Like Boris, you have water-cooled seats.
yeah, and everything works.
These are cool as well, aren't they?
Saw some F-18s coming in through
They came in through the window.
So all in all, as you can tell, I think we're pretty happy with it. And it also feels very familiar, which is really nice. It is hard not to associate it with a Defender or a Land Rover, as it is just of the same pedigree. Some people really don't like the Grenadier and also don't like the new Defender, and some people really like both of them. I do like both of them, and I've driven both of them as well. I've spent more time with the Grenadier now. And I always say to people when they don't like the Grenadier is if you just swap the two brands and imagine the new Defender was created by a brand new brand and the Grenadier was created by Land Rover, it is exactly what they would have done, or what they should have done, and what everyone was expecting them to do. Grenadier have created a product which is absolutely brilliant. People do complain about the price, and I can understand that, but if Land Rover did sort of renew the Defender into a new vehicle, or even just kept the models going with different engines, you'd be looking at a similar price to that now anyway, especially after COVID.
Smitten by something at the beginning, because then you can sort of burn out and get bored of it. I'd say with this, it is what you expect, and it just does it well. It's a utilitarian vehicle like the Defender, but it's upgraded, and if you come from that mentality, it's absolutely fantastic. Going off the Lake District in this, sometimes wear headphones, you used to be able to talk to each other. It's amazing. It's like, just, you can have your voice nice and low, and it also just cruises at motorway speeds really easily. You can overtake nice and quickly and chuck the cruise control on. Coming from that perspective, but that way, it is a complete game changer. It is a Defender that way, and it can just cruise onwards. And I think that's the crucial thing, and that's what I'd say to people from now on. How does it compare to a Defender? Leaps and bounds better, got the character, really lovely. But if you're coming from the perspective of like a Disco 4 or a Range Rover or something of that ilk, which is much more comfortable, I would say that is better for what it does. It's quieter, it's smoother, it's faster, it's more planted on the road. So if you're not planning on using it like a Defender for weekend trips, bit of off-roading, you don't really get the Defender looks thing, then the Disco side of it, Range Rovers, are more plush. But if you go for the Defender side, it's absolutely brilliant. I absolutely love it. The character's there, people really like it, and it just does everything well. I'll go for a few pros and cons, not things like, oh, I like the looks of it, because that's subjective, and not things like, oh, it's fast, because people will say that. Previously, I'll go through things that I wasn't expecting to be pros and cons. I hope you can hear me, by the way, because it is quite stormy. I'd say pros for me, having cruise control is great. The screen there with the CarPlay built in, wireless CarPlay, is really good. The smoothness of the engine is fantastic. The sound of the engine, I've only driven the petrol so far. It's obviously got the low box, which is absolutely brilliant. It's got disc lock, and you can also get the triple lock version as well, which they did have at Great Adventure as their own vehicle. These skylights are very cool. I really like those. The cockpit in here is just absolutely lovely. A lovely place to be. I'm amazed at how quiet it is and how smooth it is on the motorway. You've got a lot more room for your arm this side than your arm this side. Look, in mine, in Boris, I'd be here, but now I've got all this way up here and down here. But that leads you on to the reason it is more spacious on the inside. It's definitely wider. Following Chris and Zach through those lakes roads there, they would squeeze through a gap and I would have to really think about it. We actually had to put the wing mirrors in at one point, trying to get out from an Airbnb. They just squeeze through, wing mirrors had to come in on this. So that is one thing to consider, and that's one thing I love about Defenders, how narrow it really is. When it comes to these command modules, I'd say pros, it looks absolutely brilliant. The switches work really nicely, the toggle buttons work really nicely, and it is utilitarian, but looks really cool, like we were mentioning earlier. But it's all quite slow. I guess it is a Gen 1 car, and it's much better than Defender again. But the aircon, it has aircon, that's a pro. The aircon is a bit iffy. You put it on cold, it'll be warm for about 3 minutes. Ooh. And then it'll go cold when it wants to. When it's cold, it's fantastic. When it's a bit cold outside, turn it on, the heats really well. And when it's working, it's fantastic, as well as the heated seats, which are fantastic. But you can just be going along, and after half an hour not touching it, and it'll just go warm. Maybe that's an issue with this car, I'm not absolutely sure. That's something I've noticed myself. And when it comes to the driving of it, my opinion of this is I would have one. It's smooth, powerful, quiet, and it's fun to drive. But my opinion would be, everyone says it, the steering needs improvement really. It needs to return to centre on its own, like a Defender, like any car. And also when you're going back from a turn into the centre, it's a lot of resistance there, and it can really put you off. When we were swapping around the other guys, going around a corner, you're getting straight into it, and you really having to think about putting it back into the middle, and that can be quite disconcerting. You start heading off to one of the hedges or one of the walls. But that's definitely one thing to consider, and I don't think it would be a game changer for me, but it just takes that sort of fun away from it, because it's got the power and it's quite planted, and it could be quite exciting to drive. I'd say improve the steering, sharpen up the brakes, because it's a heavy vehicle. You can feel the weight of the brakes through the pedal, feel the weight of the car through the brake pedal, And also add maybe flapping paddles as well. That would be handy. I know again it's not a sports car, but it'd just be nice to be able to change gear with your hands on the steering wheel off-road rather than just down here. There's so many buttons on that little gear stick that you end up either flicking it back into drive mode or pressing park or something like that. So a way of changing gear on the steering wheel would be really good. And then you'd have a really fun car to drive, as well as a great cruiser and a great off-road vehicle. Thankfully, because it has got the power, it does shift, but it's a ton heavier than a 110. Chris's 110 we were comparing it to, and it is a lot more nimble. It's funny to think a whole ton heavier, and you notice it's there. It's not huge and it's not a massive thing, but it's a lot of weight to be carrying around, and it just gives you that lesser feeling of the Defenders don't dart about, but you don't dart about in this, I'll tell you that.
It is a fantastic vehicle all round. Unfortunately, as I said, didn't get to take it off road as much as I would have wanted, but it is extremely capable. And actually, when I took it back to Ocean, they said, why didn't you? But I was just a little bit too worried to sort of damage it off road, especially when you see how bad the course was that we went on. All in all, we had an absolutely brilliant time with it. I went into this video really liking the vehicle, and it didn't change my opinion at all. It just strengthened it. Maybe one day I'll be able to afford one of these, but for now I'm going to stick to Boris and thank Ocean Group for lending me the Grenadier, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Cheers.